afternoon, and welcome to Live Presents. This is Financial Literacy Month, October, and it's a time when we all should focus on our financial well-being, and the Washington Informer is here to help. We've invited a series of guests with financial tips to help you survive and maybe even thrive during these crazy times. But we can never receive or learn too much to improve not only our financial literacy, but to take that information to grow generational wealth. So I'm honored to welcome Dr. Bill Hensley, President and CEO of the National Endowment for Financial Education, also known as NEFE. Under Dr. Hensley's leadership, NEFE has championed practical research-backed financial education that helps Americans make informed money decisions. NEFE's latest nationwide poll, which was of particular interest to us when we got this information, asked what adults think students should learn before graduation and how education policy can better prepare young people for life after school. And the findings are clear. Respondents ranked mathematics and economics, personal finance among the top subjects for a well-rounded education, and there's strong support for personal finance being a required part of the core curriculum. Boy, this opened up some doors for us. So the poll also highlights ideas about funding, equity, and the real world outcomes people want from financial education. Dr. Hensley, I could go on, but I just want to say all that before welcoming you to Let's Talk Live. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. And I love any discussion that starts with data.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it helped us because I'm a lot of us, parents especially, always are beginning to hear these conversations from our younger ones saying, how come, I didn't learn about this when I was in school? Or how come I didn't learn about this earlier? And this seems to fit with what your survey showed. So talk to me about that. Talk about the poll, why you did it, and kind of repeating in some respects some of the findings.
Yes. NEFE, as we call ourselves, we've been doing polling for many years. And one of the key reasons we do that is to find out what's important to people, to keep the topic of financial education, financial literacy relevant, in front of mind, because we all have to navigate the financial system. So let's best understand how people are making sense of it or not at the moment. And so we've done polls about the graduation requirements that you mentioned, but we were curious about how do the general population see education as a right and what should be included in that right. And as you said, 3/4 of Americans think it's one of the most important topics we can cover in school, alongside math and economics and these other topics. And to me, it's because people have lived their financial life. They've gotten out into the world and looked back on their life, I guess, and wished they had had more impactful information and educational interventions in FinEd where they felt they were represented in that, and it made sense to them in their own financial goals. And so we wanted to see, and to no one's surprise, financial education was at the top of the list.
We checked with our DC public school system and found out that is a course that has been added to the curriculum here. And we'll be talking to some folks from the school system on a later show, just to find out why it's more of an option as opposed to a requirement. Where does this fit within your survey or your poll? Where would it fit within the curriculum, and how, what would a course look like?
Well, we believe the gold standard is a standalone, at least one semester of financial education, financial literacy coursework. And I use both of those phrases because people use multiple phrases to describe personal finance education. But a whole semester, and it would cover things like budgeting, managing credit, investing, saving for retirement, all the complicated language, that we all get thrown at us when we get our first job, being able to understand and how to navigate that. Any decision that can be tied to those first jobs or even in the moment, a lot of teens work. A lot of teens have money in some way or another, whether it's through allowance, whether it's through family, whether they go out and get a job after school, and making the most of that. And so things that are relevant, timely, that they can apply their knowledge in the short term is important to learners. And then there's bigger questions about taxes and eventually being able to move out, paying for college or some kind of training after high school. All of those topics are important and came to the top of the list when it came to the people we surveyed and said, what aspects of financial education would you find most valuable?
It's interesting too, because you raised the point that a lot of young people work. In the District of Columbia, we have an amazing summer youth employment program where many of our students, I think 14 and above, can get summer jobs. They're paid through, I believe, like debit cards or ATM or something like that. But then, like I said, the financial literacy doesn't come with that. So, that old saying that my dad used to say, pay yourself first, and
That's right.
10%, to go, I'm just wondering, and, in DC, we do have a largely African-American student population. So I'm curious, and kids come from different backgrounds and different socioeconomic backgrounds. So is there a one size fits all for students, or, is there something different that you would propose?
There is not a one size fits all for personal finance because it's a personal journey. It's layered in what you value, what your goals are, what's important to your family, and so looking at personal finance from the point of view of what are your goals, what do you want to achieve, how do you want to launch your life, so to speak. That will never be a one size fits all, but there are really good programs out there where people can link to decisions that they're making in school or about school, I should say, decisions they're making with their first paychecks. And financial education programming has gotten much better at trying to be responsive to the needs of diverse learners, no matter where their background is. This is especially important to me as a person who grew up in Central Appalachia, never felt like I was represented in most any sort of TV show or any kind of educational materials because, us hillbillies up in the holler, we just didn't feel like we were related to a lot of the things we were learning. So
there you are now.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. And I just, I want every student, every learner, every little face that we look into that we're advocating for, to be able to see themselves in this topic and feel that they have the agency necessary to understand credit and investing and, have that generational wealth transfer. That's the ultimate goal. FinEd alone isn't going to do that, but it's a very powerful tool in that toolbox.
And a lot of our young people are not coming out of households. Like you said, there's generations of families who never got that financial education. So they're not passing it on, to their children. Piggy banks used to be, one of those things you put a couple of dimes or nickels or quarters in there until it filled up before you broke it and spent it all. But anyway, how does that impact, I guess the lessons that are learned, particularly if that's not reinforced within the home?
Well, what we know is that home is the number one place people can learn about money. Number two is friends. Number three is school.
Right.
That's based on data. And so if you're not learning it at home, it scares me to think you're learning it from your friends because I look at some of my friends and the crazy things we all did, as teenagers with money, if we had any. But school is the great equalizer here so that if we can get financial education, financial literacy programming into classrooms, then we can assure that there's a minimum standard of knowledge. At the very least, there's a minimum standard of knowledge that every kid in every school is going to get before they finish high school. And so that's why we are working so hard to encourage every state, every district, every province essentially associated with the US to cover financial education in high school, because that's sort of the last captive audience really for folks. Even if you're in a traditional high school or not, even if you're homeschooled, no matter what, if it's part of a standard curriculum, then that is most likely going to get covered. And it's how we can assure that people in every zip code are going to get financial education, so that when they are doing those after school jobs, that they are hopefully being able to apply those lessons immediately.
Where I was going with also with that last question was, at least you're saying get that financial education before they complete high school. But is there a minimum age? Is there, could that be taught in elementary or middle school, or is it better in a high school setting?
My belief is that cumulative financial education is the best. There's actually data to support this, meaning going all the way back to preschool. There are curricula out now where there are books, cute children's books that are talking about these concepts of money. Elmo is one of the first people who can talk to you about money. And he has some lessons for me, for you, for later. I think it's how it's framed.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes all the way up through post-retirement. I think learning money management is a lifelong pursuit, because the financial system constantly evolves and the products constantly evolve and the way we spend money changes. And so the earlier, the better. There are great materials out there. If you go to the Jumpstart Coalition's clearinghouse, you can actually find age-appropriate materials for learners of all ages. And I'm a firm believer, earlier the better. And my nieces and nephews that are starting at 4 up, I have a stack of books that I just got about 2 weeks ago that I'm going to be taking to them so they can start their money lessons now.
Wow, that sounds like a great Christmas or birthday present.
It is.
And so give us that site or that place again that you just mentioned, Jumpstart.
Yes. It's the Jumpstart Clearinghouse. It's the Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Financial Literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every state has, and the Washington, D.C. has a local coalition. They have a section on their website. It's called the Clearinghouse.
Okay.
It's like any other e-commerce. You put in the age and the topics you want covered, and it'll show you what materials that are available out there that you can use. And a lot of those are actually free.
Wow, that's even a better birthday or Christmas gift that keeps earning, keeps grows in value.
True.
If I'm taking, I'm a high school student, I'm taking a financial literacy class. How do I pass? Or is it a grade? Is it a test? Is it what do I have to do to get through this?
Well, every state has a different way of doing any kind of education and any kind of accountability within education.
Right.
But what we're really pleased about is that the governor of Delaware just signed the legislation making Delaware the 30th state to require personal finance education to graduate from high school. While they all may implement this in a different way, most of them are at least a semester course. And there are national standards that same group I talked about, the Jumpstart Coalition. There are national standards on what you should know at what age. And most states have linked their curriculum to that, so that any teacher who's covering this topic knows that by 12th grade, there are certain topics, certain proficiencies that should be covered in the classroom. So there is some guidance out there available. And then there's some excellent programs available who have great lessons that teachers can use. And again, a lot of those are free. There's something unique about personal finance education, that a lot of materials are free compared to some of the other courses that we teach. And I think it's because so many of us for so long we're trying to remove barriers to financial education instruction, is that things are free or low cost. But there are state guidelines to that. They're all going to do it a little differently, but some schools or some teachers may require a portfolio or development of a plan. But most people still have to have a minimum competency in terms of knowledge, passing a certain number of questions, things like that. But, schools evolved a lot since I was there. And so it's a lot more sort of hands-on learning than it used to be.
Right. And a lot of things have evolved. I mean, we've gone
Mhm.
from the check writing days now to
Right.
just automatic deposits and things like, well, I don't know, but what people are using like Zelle and all
Right.
these processes to transfer money back and forth. And the young people know about those. They're very familiar with them. So teaching how, as the money system evolves,
Mhm.
is I think critical. So that's a wonderful thing. Does NEFE offer any curriculum or teacher training or anything as well?
We do not actually. We are the folks who help everyone else.
Okay.
We're sort of one step away from that. Many years ago, we provided curriculum, but we feel that the best value of our work is to advocate for access, advocate for high quality fin ed, advocate for things like thoughtful funding of teacher professional development at the state
Mhm.
and district level, so that the teachers themselves feel confident with the topic and they can utilize it. We all need financial education training. And then in the classroom, they're more confident covering topics like managing risk and insurance. And one of the great things, and you'd asked about this earlier, but one of the great things that's happening in financial education right now is the program providers and the educators' ability to be responsive and nimble to what's happening in the world. So people are covering topics like cryptocurrency and what does that mean? They're covering topics related to how do you finance and navigate your life, whether that be a mortgage, whether that be rent, whether that be going to college. These are relevant topics that are in the news, that are in young people's news feeds. And if we're not doing it in a safe environment with the person who knows what they're talking about, they're going to go to social media and there's no way to sort the noise there unless you've been educated and have a baseline of knowledge. And so believe me, there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah.
And we don't want just the person who is the top of the search engine list to get to be the answer. We want people to be shrewd and thoughtful and know how to sort of sort through that noise and make the right decision for them. And that's the beauty of the modern personal finance classroom that's happening now.
Yeah, and I mean, I had a conversation with someone earlier today, and we were even talking about healthcare, because now kids, up to 26 can be covered by their parents, but they may change. It wasn't like that when I was a kid growing up, I had to figure that one out myself. So I don't know if that fits into a financial education program, but I'm sure kids may have questions about that as well,
Yeah.
students.
Well, I'll say this too. One of the things that I'm very proud of with our industry in the last few years is that we've really started to consider what inclusive financial education means. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of depth to that answer. But
Yeah.
we all show up, this is the way I say it. We show up with baggage related to money. Some of us show up with trauma related to money. Some of us show up with overconfidence, but when you show up, let's meet people where they are. Let's provide them what they need. And
Mm.
that to us is inclusive, equitable, thoughtful fin ed. If you craft the experiences around the person's background, then you have a common place from which to launch. And the positive thing here is that 83% of Americans think that every high school student should have to take this class to graduate, take and pass it to graduate, and the minimum of a semester. So there's few other things in life at the moment where that many of us agree. And then those who don't think it should be required, we actually have talked to people who represent that minority. And once you sort of get through to why, it's because they didn't feel they could bring their full self into that classroom, or they
Mm.
had other financial background that weighed them down before they even got through the door. And some of us maybe felt shamed in the classroom by the decisions we've made in the past or decisions of our parents. If we can continue to evolve financial education to be a place where everyone can come in and learn and start from somewhere, then we remove that mystification that's around it. We remove those barriers, and then we all hopefully can have a minimum level of knowledge to sort of navigate the complicated, messy lives that'll be in front of us.
Wonderful. That I couldn't find a better note or message to end on, Dr. Hensley. I think that was quite appropriate for a closing remark, and also knowing you said a basic knowledge because education is a lifelong endeavor, And so we are constantly learning all along the way, even financial education.
That's right.
So I'm glad that NEFE is there, that you're continuing to do those polls and influencing what our young people are learning in the classroom. I want to thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a good one.
You too.